welcome back to another episode of the Gig Harbor Flycast, and we're with Brian Bennett from Moldy Chum, and we're gonna talk about some fish stories and some other fun stuff. So we took a break. You had a week break. We had a quick sandwich break.
Right.
It was great.
No beers were involved.
No beers
Not
involved at all. So
yeah, this COVID thing keeps going on. I'm not going to be able to fit my liver in the casket.
yeah, we were just talking about like making pickles and making pickled red onions. And,
exactly.
Yeah, we didn't even talk about pickling our livers.
I have a Zoom happy hour like every night, you know, and it's like on the you got East Coast friends, and so you're doing the East Coast West Coast thing, and it's like start drinking at 2:00 in the afternoon, you know, because 5:00 happy hour at the East Coast. It's like, should I? Yeah, why not, bird? Like, yeah, crazy.
So I was on the water with a client recently, and he's in medical stuff, and we were talking about how during this whole time that a lot of people's consumption has gone up, you know, and I mean there's a lot of issues, like real issues with like abuse issues of substances of whether it's drugs or alcohol, and like because there's
food.
People are right, food, right. I mean people are their anxiety is high, and so remember to have healthy habits. But one of the things he said that was very encouraging, he said, well, mortality doesn't start to drop until you have more than 2 drinks a day.
Oh shoot, I'm good.
You're good. You're good, right? So like, okay,
I'm good.
Yeah. So
I take I do dry January and sober October. Like I take two full months off.
Right. I think those are horrible ideas.
And then I lose like 10 pounds each one of those months, and at the end I'm like, oh God, I feel so good. And then as soon as that month's over, I'm like, woohoo! And I'm like, waking up in the morning. Like what? I didn't learn my lesson apparently.
Yeah, one time for Lent, I gave up alcohol. So for 6 weeks, no alcohol, and so the following year I gave up Lent. I'm done with that. That's pretty funny. That was a horrible idea.
Yeah, right. So, exactly. Really. I'm so much more charming when I'm drinking. But I do love that. Like when I first started doing dry January, which became popular, you know, got even bigger. I'd go to the outdoor retailer show, and it was really tough. Like you're not drinking at a trade show.
Right.
Like,
they're handing you free beers everywhere.
It's crazy.
I know.
And I remember going out with like Patagonia Brethren, you know, and being around a table at the steakhouse, and it's like drinking before and then going after, and looking across the table, and I haven't had a drink all night, and so I'm the charming, witty one, because everybody else is like slurring their words, and it's like, and I'm looking at people, and I remember looking across at a good friend of mine, and he looks at me like out of half an eye, you know, and he's got like 4 fingers of whiskey in a glass, and he looks at me and he goes, "You're gonna feel way better than I'm gonna feel in the morning." I was like, that is correct.
That is.
I was like Frank Sinatra used to say, I feel sorry for people that don't drink, because when they wake up in the morning, that's the best they're going to feel all day. So,
yeah.
But yeah, anyway.
Yeah, well.
That's good chum fodder, right there.
That is good chum fodder.
Yeah.
You even have another
I do.
Instagram account. I mean, I don't know if that's if you share that or not, but because I follow it and I love like the photos and like all the stuff.
Yeah, I do.
Drinks.
I have an alter ego, I call him. And it's Hale Orviston is his name. And those of you that have read The River Wide by David James Duncan, Hale Orviston is the father of, I can't remember the character's name all of a sudden, but so that's where the name came from.
Yeah.
He's kind of a tweed bag. And so...
You've read The River Wide?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's great.
Yeah, I started it, and I got like 40 pages in, and I'm like,
stick with it.
It's not for me, so maybe I should pick it up again.
Yeah, it's a great book. I mean, for me, it was like, I remember reading on an airplane and just laughing out loud. Like,
oh, really?
Yeah, it's super funny.
Oh.
And I've had the opportunity to meet Duncan a couple times through friends, and I'm certainly not a friend of his, but I've had dinners with him, you know, with other people.
Okay.
He's an amazing writer. I mean, and if River Wide's not your style, he's written a couple of books that are collections of short stories. So there's my story is told by water, and then there's another one called River Teeth, which I particularly like. And the idea behind River Teeth is, and if you've seen in a river, when a tree falls in a river and it erodes away, the water erodes it away, pieces of it, the last pieces that remain were once the knots, really.
Right.
And they form and they look like teeth.
Yeah. No, I got pictures on the Olympic Peninsula of me looking like a unicorn, and I bring them home to my kids because they think they're cool.
I have a whole collection.
Yeah.
But river teeth. So Duncan's thing about that. It's funny that boat's going back by again.
They went the wrong way.
They went the wrong way.
We've had some comedy here down at the shop. We've,
Yeah.
I mean, we're in a little downtown harbor front area, and like this big, huge boat from Arizona,
mega yacht.
The trailer is scraping the surface of the road as it's going by. This thing's ridiculous.
Yeah.
But of course, you can't get it from Arizona by water. You have to drag it on a oversized. I mean, I don't even know what the shipping cost would be on that thing.
Doesn't matter. Guy that can afford that boat,
right?
That's funny money,
right?
I can pull that out of the sock drawer,
right?
But sweep it out of his couch. I can cover the shipment. So
no, he would pay someone to sweep it out of his couch.
He would, exactly. But river teeth. Back to the river teeth thing. Like Duncan's piece in the beginning, something to the effect like that. That's like the memories. That's like everything in that tree that's what's left of it.
Yeah, it's history.
And so that collection of stories are his river teeth. So the stories of him as an angler and as a boy growing up in Portland. And interesting enough, in the first episode, I mentioned my friend Casey. Casey and Duncan. Casey's in one of those short stories, and they went and fished a secret spot in Yellowstone that I won't mention, but. Duncan caught like one of the biggest wild trout that he's ever hooked in his entire life on this trip, and it's a great story. And the river we'll
put a Google Map link in the show notes.
It's funny he calls the river because he doesn't name the river, but he calls it the Beavis and the Butthead, or the Beavis and Butthead is the name of the river. Yeah, it's pretty funny. Anyway.
Well, I mean, talking about fishing stories.
Yeah.
Oh man, yeah. I have a few stories of out on the water with Brian.
Oh my God!
Or just even.
Are we going to go down that big giant steelhead on the hoe story?
I wasn't going to, but I should.
Yeah.
Ooh. Oh my gosh. Okay, so we're floating the hoe, and this was. Do you still fish with bobbers?
I don't.
Yeah, I don't either. So.
I was at the time.
Yeah, so this was many moons ago in our unrepentant stage where we would fish where we thought it was fly fishing to fish a bobber
an indicator,
and a bead,
and a bead. Yeah,
but it's on fly tackle, so it's fun. Yeah, but there's not much. The cast is more of a windshield wiper than anything, but it's not like nymphing for trout. So anyways, I'm in the back of the boat. Brian's in the front of the boat, right? Yes. Mm-hmm. And Chris is rowing. And it's a long time ago, so I'm like trying to remember. But I do remember Brian throws the indicator next to this giant down tree. Like this thing is like just a Goliath tree that's down. And he hooks this fish, and it's a monster. I mean, it is.
We were with Frank Smethurst.
Not in the boat, though, but it was on that trip.
Well, yeah. So and the interesting thing, like Blake says what I learned after that is I realized that if I wasn't using that style of fishing, I would have never been able to hook that fish.
Clearly,
like he was in a spot that was inaccessible, and that taught me about holding water for fish and why they theoretically you don't want to fish from a boat in rivers that have limited runs of fish because you'll be able to target fish in places where they're resting and they need that spot. But yes. But we hooked that fish and it tore off to the ocean, and we went and then Ringley
was hot.
And Ringley rowed us over to the bank,
and then we had to get back in the boat.
And but Frank tried to net it with the big salmon net that he had.
Yeah.
And he was like, it was like when I say net, like he was way down that bar and tried it. And I remember Frank dropping the net and turning to me and going, like putting his arms out like this, like what? And it was and Ringley's yelling at me, keep him in the hole, keep him in the run. And I'm like, dude, I can't.
Yeah. And you were on a 7-weight. I remember that.
8-weight Winston.
Was it 8?
8-weight Winston, but John Kovich.
Sure didn't look like an 8-weight. It looked like a 4-weight. The way this fish. I mean, this fish was in. I mean, it was well over 20 pounds.
Oh yeah, it was a 40-inch fish.
It was just massive, and but so the reel you could smell. Yeah. You could smell the drag disintegrating in this reel, and it smelled like it smelled like hot oil, and it smelled like hot metal. You could smell hot metal, totally. And and I mean, I sell these reels. So
it's a good reel.
I'm not going to mention the name of the reel. It's.
I still have the reel.
Yeah, they're great.
Yeah.
I mean, but this fish just was
smoked it.
It was amazing. So the reel ends up giving out. and it essentially goes from tight drag to just no drag, and it spins out and explodes into a bird's nest of backing, because we were way into the backing at this point, and it's all tangled up, and like, I mean, emotions are running high, and Brian's on the bank. He's like, I can't get the reel off. He's trying to pull it off, and I run down the bank, and I'm holding the fly line in one hand and the knot and the backing in the other hand, and I'm trying to give him a little bit of slack so he can try to get some of the line, because if the line's taut, it's not going anywhere. So I give him a little bit of slack, and I'm holding the fish, and then this fish is so large, I can feel the fish turn to go downstream. Like, I can physically feel him turn 100 feet away, and then that's when it was all over. And then that's when the rod and the reel went flying across the gravel bar.
I don't remember that part.
Oh, Brian.
I remember drinking the flask.
I remember Chris and I just like, we were looking at each other and we were like, this is gonna be a quiet boat ride for a while.
Well, then you hooked the fish like in the next run.
Probably.
Yeah, I think.
I'm just kidding. I don't remember that at all. Did I really?
I have a picture of it. It wasn't. Yeah, it was a nice fish. I don't
remember that.
But I remember, my adrenaline was beyond belief at that point.
Oh, it was pretty crushing. And we didn't know what to say, because it's like, it's like, what do you do when your fishing buddy loses the fish of a lifetime? And now you're in a 13-foot raft, all three of you.
Lesson learned.
You're like, what's amazing? Like, do I say a joke, or do I just say sorry, or what
I have one picture from that whole session. Actually, two pictures, and there's one picture, and it's me running. It's a blurry picture, and it's me running in the water. Yeah. And I've got I
remember that. I think I remember that.
And I have it, and it must have been raining because I have the hood on. And, and I have a recycled waiter's little pouch bag on my shoulder, and I'm like I'm a blur. Just like. Yeah. But that was epic. What's funny about that too, though, what I love about it is like, and I've learned, is sometimes like, of course I would have loved to have landed that fish, and of course I would have loved to have a picture of me holding that fish. Oh yeah. All of the above. But you sometimes remember those fish better than you remember because I've caught a lot of big steelhead.
You can tell yourself that, but this would. All I know is
don't go there. Don't burst my bubble, man.
All I know is I wish I had the swear bucket in the boat that day, because I'd be rich.
That was a good one. That was a steelhead camp that we were doing with Frank Smethurst. Frank was up shooting trout. Yeah. That TV show that he did. And Frank had some great stories from that. I don't know if those of you know Frank Smethurst, Running Down the Man, and he was in a bunch of
Eastern Rises. That's a great one.
Great guy. We worked together on Patagonia. He was actually one of my sales reps, but he had some great stories from that trip. Like, 'cause he was fishing.
Oh, I have a great story of him from that trip.
Where like the fish came up and ate the indicator, and he like had the fish on the indicator.
I have a story from the end of the trip. So Brian, we're out in Forks, and I got to ride out there, and I'm out there, and I need a ride back. And Bennett had to leave. Right. You had to leave to go get some guys from like Colorado and stuff like that.
Tucker Ladd from Trouts and Will Sands from Taylor Creek.
Had to take them to the airport. Yep. And so Smethurst has been out here for like weeks, and just living in this hotel room. And you're like, I'm gonna leave you with Frank, and he's gonna drop you off. And so you drop me off at the hotel, and we're at the Forks Motel, and I walk into Frank's place, and it looked like a bomb exploded. Like he had clothes and stuff just covering. I mean, it was like walking into a teenager's bedroom. It was ridiculous. I'm like, oh my gosh, there's been like homeless people living in here. Like it was so bad. And Frank's like, I'm packing up. We'll get going in a little bit. This will only take me about an hour, and then we got to go down to the Ho because I lost my phone. I'm like, whoa. We're 3 hours from Gig Harbor. It's gonna take you an hour to clean up, and we got to go to the Ho, which is 20 to 30 minutes down, away to go find your phone. And it had rained over an inch that night. Like it had poured that night, all night long. That's right. So I try to help Frank pack all of his stuff up. I mean, it was just. I mean, I'm like, should we pack this in black garbage bags?
I've been in his van before. His van was kind of like that too.
His van probably just puked all of it into the hotel room. So we go down to the Hoe.
Well, he had his van there, didn't he?
Yeah.
The van was there.
I know. I rode in the van.
Yeah.
We rode down to the Hoe. We
Yeah.
went. He's like, I remember exactly where I set my phone down, and it's on the South Fork of the Hoe. I'm like, oh great. So now we're gonna go on a hiking trip
Yeah,
as well.
'cause-
So we
yeah.
drive this van all the way back up to the South Fork. There's a bridge that goes over the river, and we hop out, and the river is now 6 or 7 feet higher than it was the day before because of the amount of rain.
That's right.
And so we get our waders on and we start hiking our way down to the river. And I'm like, dude, this is ridiculous. I need to get back to Gig Harbor. There's no way we're gonna find the dude's cell phone, and if we do, it's gonna be ruined. So hike about 20 minutes down, and we get down close to the confluence where the North Fork and the South Fork come together. And he's like, oh, right here, I called my wife and I put it on this log. I was taking a leak and I put it down. And it's this giant tree. Somehow it wasn't completely submerged in the water, but it was in the water and it hadn't been the day before. And it wasn't there. So I'm like, okay, your phone's gone. It's time for us to go. So he's like, no, we're going to find my phone. I'm like, this is ridiculous. This is a fool's errand. So we start walking through these little braids of where the river channeled out that had not been there the day before. And all of a sudden he starts yelling, no way. And he like starts running through the water and plunges his hand down into the icy water and pulls out this bright orange flip phone. And I'm like, you just found your phone. And he just lifts it up to me, flips it open, calls his wife, and I'm like, how is his phone working? I mean, this is
Wasn't
before,
it in a case?
No, this was the first ever waterproof flip phone. And he flips this thing open, and I didn't even know they existed. I had I think I maybe had an Apple iPhone 3G or something like that.
Exactly.
I think it was right when that first came out. So he calls her all excited about I just found my phone. You won't believe this. And then you can tell what's going on the internet. And then immediately, no, I'm leaving today. I'll be home. Okay, bye.
Threw his phone back in the water.
Right. So I didn't get back until the evening that night, but I still remember that. And then his phone, you would open it,
And the water would.
There's this creak from the glacial silt in the hinge of the phone. It was.
I remember
grating.
that. I think I remember that phone even after that. But
I hope he still has it.
that's so funny. I don't know what Frank's doing these days. I still see him on Instagram and that stuff, but he's definitely got a much lower profile than he used to have.
Yeah, family life.
Well, that too, and also the changing times, right?
Sure.
It's like you're kind of the big thing in an area, and then a younger kind of group comes in behind, and things kind of change. Yeah,
Things do change.
But he definitely made a career out of it, which is pretty cool.
Yeah. So speaking of careers and fly fishing, we kind of talked about this a little bit in the last episode, but I feel like you have a pretty good pulse on what happens in the industry just because of the way you're connected and you also you spend a lot of time reading about culture and really have a really good pulse on just what's happening in broader culture and specifically in our genre. And with everything that's changed here over the last couple months because of COVID, what are some of the trends that you've seen in fly fishing, during this period, as well as things that you saw kind of coming up to that? And then what's your magic ball predict for the foreseeable 3, 6, 12 months?
Good question. So a couple things. One is I came out of a specialty retail background. When I started in outdoor working for REI on the retail floor, I was literally in the bike shop. And worked with, when I was a bike rep, I worked with all specialty, bicycle retailers. There's a lot of similarities there. Fly fishing, people have heard me say this before, it's the petri dish of specialty retail. So it's very much an indicator of kind of market trends that happen in other places because it's very singularly focused. In the outdoor space, if you have an outdoor shop, you've got boats, which you actually have, right? But you have boats, you have footwear, you have all these different categories. So when a category is up, maybe another one's down, you pick it up somewhere else, right? So there's a different balance. When you're singularly focused on fly fishing and something comes along like COVID, it puts a dent in the business at large, right? So it's challenging in that respect. I will say this, and I've said this a long time, if you look at the level of kind of engagement and sophistication in fly fishing, especially when it comes to like social media. You look at the advent of, the fly fishing film tour and those things early on that really began to kind of speak to that. It was like, it's not a stodgy old sport. Like that trajectory has been really, really dramatic. And as I did the piton and outdoor and then it kind of migrated into the fly fishing space, I always made the argument that the social media, the quality of it, the breadth of it, some of it not the great quality, but just the breadth of it, is as robust as any other kind of sport category out there. Like literally. I mean, there's great climbing stuff, great mountain biking stuff. And would
it be small? Is it a smaller genre though in comparison?
Well, I think as a business, it's on paper, it's a smaller business.
Yeah.
But its footprint, as far as a lifestyle goes, is bigger than its business footprint.
Interesting.
So it's big, and I think it's beginning to reflect in the growth of the sport.
Yeah.
It's beginning to reflect in, there was a piece in the New York Times, is fly fishing the new bird watching, right?
Yeah.
Which is another, like, really, you're going to go like down that road, but, and it's all about fly fishing and,
sometimes it is bird watching.
Well, it's true. But I think that, it's become, and there's been kind of this throwback, you look at some of the old school brands like Filson and those people that, have become relevant again in this new era.
Sure.
I think fly fishing's been able to take advantage of that because it is a heritage sport that has this great history. I've got all these old fly fisherman magazines. I scan them and use them for posting, and you go through some of the stuff. Like, you look at like the quality of what was in those old magazines, the art, the people that were writing, like Ernest Schreiber, Lee Wolf. It's like, holy crap,
Right.
There is that really wonderful heritage. It goes back to, so I think the industry's in a better place and in a good place moving forward. Unfortunately, any specialty retailer right now, some people are doing okay because they were positioned well to take advantage of the opportunities that present themselves when this kind of stuff happens, and ultimately will be better set up later on. But it's I think short term there's going to be some pain. I think long term the sport will grow and will be in a better place ultimately as a result of this, because people are going to be looking for ways to escape from the issues that we have, whether it's COVID or the political climate. In the outdoor space, and if you look at back, like, when did people kind of move into the outdoors? Like, I want to get away from it all. That was the whole thing. Back in the post World War II, it was Jack Kerouac and the Dharma bums. It was like they had liberated Paris, right? Well, what do we do now? I'm 19 years old and I've peaked. So what did they do? They went into fire towers and they wrote the beatnik stuff, and it was all. And the 60s was the same way. Like, you put your backpack on because you wanted to get away from all of that. So I think fly fishing provides that. I think the conundrum is, we're tied to these things still, no matter what.
Yeah, our phones.
But I think that people are like fly fishing. I think camping. I think all this backpacking, all of those kind of things. I think there's going to be a real trend back to that because people want to escape from the environment that we're living in right now.
Yeah, the craziness.
And once you have the opportunity to be able to do that, what better way to heal yourself than to, get off the grid for a few days, even if it means having to turn your phone off.
Right.
Right.
I love going places where my phone actually doesn't work. Yeah. It's glorious. Like,
totally.
It's like, oh my gosh.
But I think, the other thing is, like, we all want the industry, like, as I work with Ben at the trade association. We want the industry to grow. We want But at the same time, it's like, but we kind of don't want more people on the water, right?
Right.
Like, it's a double-edged sword.
Totally.
And you look at, can't go to work, and fishing opens, and you go to the boat ramp, and it's
packed.
Busier than it's ever been.
Sure.
So, you got to somewhat be careful what you wish for.
But I guess the counterpoint is to speak back to our previous podcast episode from last week. More anglers means
conservation,
more conservationists. Totally. That
yep.
So.
Yeah, for sure. And ultimately there is room, and if they get involved, that's one way create more opportunities to create healthier rivers.
So the industry needs to come up with a key. Industry needs to come up with a key to grow new anglers, but just keep them on YouTube.
Yeah, well,
no, I'm just kidding.
no doubt. Well, and I think I'd be remiss in saying this. And I've been working with AFTA on the conservation from the couch thing. It's been a really good thing. And I when I was doing the piton in the outdoor industry, we were very critical of the Outdoor Industry Association. And my really good friend Frank, who used to run it, who I'm still good friends with at this point, he actually runs he's actually executive director at the Marine Manufacturers Association right now. He was running the RV Association for a while, the trade association for the RV industry. Frank's a really, really good guy, very well connected. The Fly Fishing Trade Association, if you look at where they're at, and I think I would put this right on, and I would credit Ben for this, since he's come on, and where the trade is now from a business standpoint, the resources they provide, all that is light years ahead of where it was back when I first started playing in this space, back in 2005.
Yeah, I've seen that.
So no doubt. So, and I think it's that's a really, really good thing.
Yeah.
So I'm proud to be a part of that.
Yeah.
For sure.
That's cool.
Yeah.
So Chum Nation, you have so Moldy Chum has been like the thing. But you're super active on Instagram. We're actually going to have you do an Instagram takeover of the Gig Harbor Fly Shop Instagram account for a bit. But you have so you're growing other channels as well.
Yeah. So I will say one thing about my Instagram page. It is really my personal page, though.
Okay.
I mean, when I started in Instagram and Twitter back in the day, there was some other early adopters. Cam Mortensen at the Fiberglass Manifesto. I mean, we were on Instagram early.
Yeah.
When Instagram was really a vehicle for creatives, like it was about putting nice pictures up. Now it's become more of a social media. Like for some people,
sure,
it's 300-word posts about this, that, and the other thing. That's not what Instagram is for me. I don't run Instagram like a business. I don't run I do run Moldy Chum kind of like a business, but I don't harvest emails from people. I don't do email campaigns. I don't have newsletters. We still kind of run it like it's still kind of the Stone Age in that respect. And so
I do. And you should subscribe to our email.
Exactly. No, absolutely. But I think that piece of it, from like those other channels, like we did start a podcast.
The first episode was incredible. So check out their podcast called Real Pure Radio.
Correct.
And
one episode.
But it's worth listening to. It's a really creative and entertaining story.
Yeah, and my partner Paul, like literally, the first time I met Paul, we talked about this kind of fly fishing meets This American Life thing. It was like 6 years ago. And I never want to be that guy who was like, I was doing it before anybody, kind of like I did have a podcast called The Fish Stick that with Teach Stufer and Michael Morrow. We did 99 episodes, and it was this kind of format. And we quit after 99, and we didn't want to do 100 for some reason.
Right. And
we had crazy guests. Like it was very. We had the guy that caught a world record, bluegill on. We had Shaw Grisby, the bass fisherman, and then we had April on, and we had. It was like we had the full gamut.
That's funny.
So, but we've been wanting to do this thing, but it's a hard thing to produce, really good theater of the mind. It's got to be written, and like this first episode that we did, which is called Chasing Shadows, it was recorded in Baja. So
yeah, you had him mic'd up while he was fishing.
Yeah, the cool thing about Real Pure Radio is when you hear the first 5 seconds of it, you go, "This is not like any other podcast I've heard." Although there's a couple out there that are doing a real good job of that.
Yeah,
Drake Cast and like my favorite podcast right now is Andy Mill's podcast. It's called Millhouse.
Yeah,
and it's really good. It's about kind of the historic kind of tarpon. The fishery in the Keys.
Sure.
It's like old school, new school. It's really good, and it's really well done.
Nice.
Because he's Andy Mill, right? He used to be a broadcaster, and married to Chris Everett. Yeah, was.
Have you ever fished the Keys?
I have fished the Keys.
I've never fished the Keys.
Yeah, I used to be on the board of a group called Big City Mountaineers, and so we used to have our board meetings in Florida. So I used to go fish the Keys all the time. But never really, not super serious. I get invited. My buddy Captain Keith invites me down all the time.
Mm-hmm.
Keith Robbins, he's down there right now. Like the fishing down there right now is like crazy good. because it's been closed.
Yeah, there's no one there.
There's no one there. I've got another friend that got stuck down there for 5 weeks. And, like, hooked up with a guy. Like, he was fishing the beach on the Boca side, the Captiva side, and met a guy in a skiff. Like, the guy was fishing in a skiff so close they could kind of talk to each other. And then one day the guy just pulled up on the beach and goes, "Dude, you want to jump in?" He goes, "Yeah." So he jumps in, and he's featured on the cover of the Next Tail magazine, this guy. I call him the anchor man. So apparently he likes to anchor up, and I think the first day I said they jumped 13 fish.
Jeez.
Yeah, it's been good.
Yeah.
Really good. So yeah, I have fished the Keys. My buddy Andy does a lot of tagging down there, Andy Danielchuk.
He was supposed to come up here this summer.
Yeah, we don't know what's going to happen.
Yeah. Because we were going to have him on the podcast.
Yeah, they were going to do a whole tour. We didn't stay with us. We usually see him every summer. They come and hang out with us on the Cape. We did some GT work with him on Christmas Island. But he's been on a tarpon tagging project down there for, I don't know, maybe entering their 4th year now.
Oh, wow.
And so they've got some really good, I mean, we did our BTT conservation from the couch session. Andy talked a lot about the tarpon tracking stuff that they have. It's crazy, like, where they're finding those fish.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Can you share anything about that?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of stuff off of North Carolina. In the pre-call, I heard something about a tarpon being caught off of Cape Cod.
That's crazy.
Yeah. So it was a good one. But yeah, the Keys always on my bucket list. But here's the thing about the Keys: it's like about as far as you can go in the United States from here. Like,
I know.
It's easier to get to Christmas Island, other than the overnight in Hawaii.
Right.
It's easier to get to Christmas Island. It is about the same theoretically.
It's quicker to go to Cuba.
Yeah. Exactly.
Really.
So that's always been one of kind of the limiting factors.
Sure.
But I've had some fun times there when I have gone. I've done a little bit of tarpon fishing, but not super seriously. Like, I really want to.
Yeah.
Like, that's kind of my next frontier. But my latest thing is Mexico. I've been going down to ESB Lodge. I've been the last 2 years.
You're letting out the secret now, huh?
Well, that's no secret. It's to try to get on. There's 200 people waiting list to get down there. It's an amazing place. And to me, and you can relate to this. I think anybody who travel when you go somewhere, it's not only just the destination and the fishery, but it's the people that you meet there.
Sure.
And the people that you work with. And Dane and Kiara, who own that lodge, are just really, really great people. So what's cool about ESB is, like, I never really, as a fly angler, the permit, right? Pursuit of permit, it's kind of that, it's one of those things where you got to check it off the list. And never really had the
opportunity. Again and again.
Again. Well, it was amazing. And, like, people talk about, permit psychosis, right? And I kind of got it, but I didn't. And when I went down there, I did the classic, like, I don't really care if I catch one, like, oh, yeah, all right. I really wanted to catch one, but I was trying to minimize my expectations.
Oh, sure.
Didn't want to be disappointed.
Yeah.
And that fishery down there provided, like, literally the opportunity to kind of really experience that in a way it's like I could chase them all the time if I could. It's truly amazing. I mean, my first permit, my first shot at a permit was literally, like, my first time on the front of the boat. Like, okay, go ahead, and there's fish and cast.
Yeah.
And it was the, like, strip, and it was a big fish, and it followed all the way, like, fairly close enough to the boat that the beam of light from the sun hit it, and it turned on its side, and I could see the lips. And,
oh my gosh.
And it was just like, and then it just,
it took off.
And it was like, that was, okay. That's
So people that haven't fished permit, they a lot of times they don't understand what it's like when they're like, what do you mean you fish all week long to try to hook one? And, like, you count when they follow. That counts as something, like,
absolutely.
Oh yeah, it totally counts as something.
Yeah, and then it was funny. It was at the end of the week, and I had a good week. I hooked 6 fish, and But if I had known at the end of the week what I knew at the beginning of the week, I probably would have landed all 6. I only landed 2 of them.
Only 2 of them.
Yeah, but, like, the other ones there is, like, because I didn't know.
Yeah.
And I had somebody with me that really kind of knew what they were doing, but it was,
In January, my last day fishing. Was it my last day?
Well, you want one quick thing?
Yeah.
But I went back the following year.
Yeah.
When I was there the first time, it was in August. I went back in November. The second year, I didn't see a permit.
Yeah.
So.
Well, so this last trip to Cuba in January, I landed a permit on the last day of the trip.
That was a nice fish.
It was a beautiful fish, but that broke a 30-day drought of permit, of fishing for them without, I hooked a couple, had eats, had follows, all that kind of stuff. But landing, it was 30 days.
Well, and that's the funny thing too. I mean, look at this, like you're going to Cuba,
crazy.
It's like fishing the Keys were 30, 40, 50 years ago, right? Technically.
Yeah.
And you look at that and you go, it's still fishing. Like the wind still blows, the fish
fish still have an eyeball the size of a horse, they can see everything. There's it doesn't change any of that.
Well, here's the funny thing. I mean, that's the thing. We chase them in places where they're that way. You can go down and go off the coast of the Keys and get over a wreck and throw a live shrimp and catch them all day long.
Oh, I'm sure you could do that off Cuba too with a
all
baby
long.
Lobster and just destroy some. Yeah, but
so it's like the whole thing. It's like, oh yeah, they're super. Like they're in the right conditions. They're not that selective, but yeah.
Fly fishing for them.
Well, and if you're on a flat, I mean, any fish on the flat is like that. Like I fish for striped bass a lot, and honestly, like I think if I were to say what's my favorite fishery, it's striped bass fishing. And that's because it's home water for me.
Sure.
And you can catch them in a lot of different ways, right? You can catch them swinging big squid patterns in the rips and having a grab, but you can also get them on the flats like any other flats fish. And when they get on the flats, they're as spooky as any other fish.
Sure.
So, but it's super fun. It took me 10 years to figure out how to catch them on the flats at my parents' house.
Wow.
Like literally. Like they're swimming between my legs and I couldn't get them to eat. Yeah. The permit don't swim between your legs. But
right, yeah.
Yeah, seriously. It was... it was secret fly and some technique and learned, and like once you figured it out, it was like, oh my God, like now I go down there. If they're there, I catch them.
That's awesome.
Super fun. And then when you're done, that's the thing to me about, it's like redfish too. Like stripers and redfish, I mean, they pull really hard. They can be really visual, top water or whatever, but they're not what I would consider a boutique species, right? They're not like the tarpon jumping and permit, exotic places where you have to go. But it's the whole package complete.
Sure.
Right? Because you got to go to New Orleans or Texas coast.
Yeah.
You're going to eat good food.
Right.
You're going to drink adult beverages. You're going to be with friends. You're going to go out. You're going to have a great time in a beautiful place, right? Wildlife. You're going to see crazy stuff. The fishing goes along with it. And then when you're done for the day, the same thing. You're going to go back and eat some oysters on the half shell, although you won't. But maybe you go duck hunting in the morning and you get birds and you catch some sea trout and it's the whole thing. And for stripers, it's
full package for sure.
You go eat a lobster roll when you're all done.
Yeah, my friend Pat says the fly fishing. I mean, the reason why he loves fly fishing is that fly fishing is more than just fly fishing.
That's true.
It's all of those other parts of it and I think that's one of the big draws. A lot of people they can't articulate that because they haven't thought about it. But then when they think about it, they're like, yeah, it is all of that other stuff about fly fishing that makes fly fishing so great.
And that's a good throwback to that conversation, like where is the industry at and where is all of that? Like that nexus of all of that, like if you look at what's popular in, YouTube culture and all that, it's like good food and like, how to smoke a brisket, and all of that kind of, when you thread fly fishing into that, it only enhances all of that, And it could be, a good $5 cigar and a flask of whiskey while you're out sea run cutthroat fishing, and it's like super fun.
Super fun. Okay, well, I think that's enough for
do we go another
time.
50 again?
Oh my gosh, no, we went 40 minutes today about.
Wow.
So but you and I are going to get out on the water and we're going to fish tonight. And
that's right.
Yeah. And so we're going to be fishing with Zach Dalton from Farbank. So he's the sales manager up there for Sage, Rio, Reddington, Flywater. And so we're going to go bass fishing tonight. So
I'm going to fly my drone.
We got the drone. We got Josh joining us for video stuff. So check out that video. It'll be on our YouTube channel.
A beer or two, maybe?
Yeah. There might even be a Seabex pizza
I've heard about
showing of that.
I was actually there, I think, at the original CDEX.
you were. I got some funny ideas to tell you about this after we
so
hit
good.
stop. So,
Yeah.
hey, if you haven't subscribed to our podcast or our channel, make sure
it.
you subscribe so you get
Hit
all the
the button. Where
updates.
is it?
Yeah,
It's
the
over
button.
there.
It's in the bottom right
in the
hand
bottom
corner.
corner?
Right down there.
Right down
So
there. Okay.
make sure you hit that just so you can keep updated because we got a lot of really fun stuff planned. And
Yeah,
don't
Jan,
wanna miss
if
out.
you're a Chum person, you've been following Moldy Chum, thank you for being a loyal follower. And if you haven't, check us out. Check us out on Instagram. We'd love to share kind of what we do with you, and hope to see you out there.
thanks for joining us.